So you have a media player and you want to connect it to your user interface on your app. So I thought I'd make this quick video for all of you making an Android app that needs to use a media player, wondering how you connect the two. Because, unfortunately, unlike Exoplayer in Android, Media Player doesn't come with a way to see what its metadata or its state is. Well, it does have some ways of seeing how to do that, but it doesn't have what we might expect as developers. So I'm going to show you how to do it quickly and easily, and hopefully painlessly. So I've got a simple recording app here, Audio Recorder Pro, and whenever I hit play, my audio plays. So I'm hearing that in the headphones. So it's got a play button, it's got a skip ahead button, and it's got a skip back button. So if I'm playing and I skip ahead, it will skip ahead or back by 10 seconds, right? Like I said. I can also grab the Seekbar, and wherever I drop it, it'll start playing again. Okay, ignore all the other stuff on screen because you're not here for that. How did I connect my media player to this? Well, first of all, I assume that you've already set up your media player. So in my playback view model, so I have a fragment that holds a reference to the view model, which is informing my view, the playback fragment here, which I'm just going to show you the code of. So in the view model, I've got some variables that you need not worry about. I'm basically getting the folder where my file is stored. I'm creating a URI for that. I've just got a little log tag to tell myself where that file is stored, and then I create my media player. Okay, now this media player I've defined at the top of my playback view model, so it's way up here. Now the view model itself isn't a plain view model; it's an Android view model, and that allows me to have a reference to the app or the application that we're running in. So a big problem with view models is you have to pass the context into a view model, but that's a bad idea because, the context might not exist after you've passed it into the view model. So that's why I'm using this, and we will use that context probably in the media player, something like that. Anyway, that's by the by. So I've got the media player ready. So in the media player section, I mean, you've probably done this already. We set some audio attributes, and this is all Kotlin code. We tell it the content type, usage media. Don't forget to set the permissions in your Android manifest file. So if I go to my manifest, I've got permission to record audio. You probably don't need that. I've also got permission to wake lock, and that allows the CPU to keep spinning even if the device is switched off or your app isn't in the foreground. That's important to have for a playback app. Then we build that. That is related to that wake lock permission. So we set the wake mode as a partial wake lock. We don't need it to stay on like you would with video, but we need it to still have access to the CPU cycles. We set the data source of the media player, and then we're done with setting it up. Then what we do is we give the media player an on-prepared listener. I've got a little variable I set here as recording setup finished. So when this class first loads, recording setup finished is false. And then once it's set up, I set that to true. That's just a one-time flag, so I know how to set my play and pause buttons and what they should do, respectively. So when it's prepared, I want it to start, right? And to give it that signal to start preparing, I call MediaPlayer.prepareAsync. Now you can just use plain old prepare, which isn't asynchronous. It just runs as you go, but this might run on the UI thread, which is going to make your app stutter and not be very responsive, if not crash. Well, it won't crash. You'll get an application not responding from the Android system. This video is part of a series. If you'd like to see new series and stay up to date on when they're launched, then you can do so by heading over to imdev.net/buildit. What's more, you can even download the source code hinted at in all these videos and access revenue reports so you can see just how well these apps are doing. Finally, if you want to get a totally free cheat sheet that outlines my entire process from planning to launching, then you can also do that at imdev.net/buildit. So that's the media player side set up, okay? What do we have next? Well, we need a way for the media player to fire off notifications that our XML can listen to and change its state accordingly. So the first thing we'll look at are the buttons, right? And in particular, the buttons we're looking at are this backwards, forwards, and this one you can't see, which is the play button or pause button, but it is here. And the reason you can't see it is because I've set the source of the button, i.e. the image, to either pause or play, depending on the view model is playing parameter. Okay, now I'll get to what that is in a minute. But all this is an else operator. This is like saying if else, right? So question mark, if is playing is true, then we set the button to pause. If it's false, we set the button to play. Okay, that's simple enough. How do we get access to the view model? You probably know this, but that is the key component. We set the variables to playback view model, right? That's how we get access to it. So there's our play image button. We come back to the playback view model. And what I'm going to do is look up at the top here. I have this mutable live data and live data. So again, you should know what this stuff is if you are coding in the modern Android app architecture way. You need to use mutable live data and live data in concert to broadcast variables to the XML, right? So this view model doesn't have access to the XML. It knows nothing about it because the XML might be destroyed and recreated when you rotate the device or you switch between apps. That's why we keep that separation. Not to mention, it's just good behavior on your part as a developer. Okay, so we have this is playing. So that value there is playing is this here. It's listening to that value. So every time that value changes, because it's live data, if you don't know what that is, you should look it up. Every time the live data changes, the view gets informed and it changes the button accordingly. Okay, so what else do we need to have here? Well, none of this other stuff is relevant right now, but we will get to it. Now, this is how I solve the problem. In software development, you have two ways of checking something. One way is to poll it. Keep asking it every second. Have you changed? Have you changed? Have you changed? The other way is to have the thing tell you that it's changed, right? So it notifies you. What we're doing is the first version, polling, which isn't the most efficient version, but it's fairly simple. And for an app like this, it's fairly straightforward. So what we need to do is we need to have something that runs every time something changes, we need to have something that runs after a set amount of time, okay? That amount of time in this case is 100 milliseconds. I'm actually going to up that for my particular app to, let's say, 400 milliseconds. So it's not running as often. We just don't need it that often. The L stands for long type. Then we need a handler. The handler is going to run a runnable. Right? These are all Kotlin concepts. And the runnable that we've made here is called the status checker. So a better name would be the MediaPlayer status checker, but you get the idea. If you like this video, then don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you really like it, then also hit the notification bell so you can learn something, instead of letting YouTube shove funny but unproductive cat videos down your throat. So how do we set these things up? Well, I have a little method here called set MediaPlayer status watcher. And that's where I create the status checker, okay? So this is an object runnable, and each object runnable comes with a function called run that runs when you call this object runnable. And what we do is we say, I want you to update the status of the player. So all this code means is you're running this every 400 milliseconds as things currently stand. When it's finished running it, it says, I want you to schedule this to run again in 400 milliseconds time. So post delayed this status interval. Simple as. I'm not going to go through the code, what each thing means, because you can see that when you type this out. Then I say, I want you to schedule the first run right now. So we'll go ahead and do that. Then I have an update status. So this is checking the media player every 400 milliseconds. So first I want to check the media player exists, and if it does, if it's playing, I have a whole bunch of live data items, which I'll show you up here. A whole bunch of live data items that are related to the user interface. So the media duration in milliseconds, the media duration readable. So the readable is what you would show on the Seekbar. You wouldn't show milliseconds because that confuses the user unless it's a specialist app. The current position, because they need to know where they are, and the current position in milliseconds. Those things are also related to the Seekbar, right? Because the Seekbar needs to start from 0 and go to a maximum. And as it moves across the screen, it needs to know where it is, and that will be the current position. Okay, so that's all related to what we're doing here. We will get to the Seekbar in a bit. Okay, so we'll come back to update status. So if something is playing, then we set is playing to true. Okay, and remember that's the pause play button. So it's going to check that every time it changes. We are going to do the current position in milliseconds. We're going to post a value for that. Current position readable. Now I haven't set up readables in this particular app because I'm still developing it. So in here, instead of current position millisec value to string, you would have maybe a different class. Actually, for Android, you'd have a plugin that turns milliseconds to a human readable time, you know, like 2 minutes, decimal, 31 seconds, whatever it is. We have media duration in milliseconds, so that's going to be the size of the Seekbar. So if I go back to the emulator, it's this value on the right side. That's the duration. Now you could get this from somewhere else because it's not likely to change unless you're allowing the user to edit the audio. And again, I've done the same for the readable version of that. I'm in development, so I haven't actually set that up yet. Now, if it's not playing, we come down here and we post the value as false. So if I'm in the emulator and I hit play, we get the pause button. If I hit it again, we get the play button. And if I drag it, again, same effect, right? So I've got mine to autoplay after we've dragged it, like that. Okay, so that's how I take care of actually connecting the code and the UI. Basically, it's a whole bunch of live datas, and of course you can refactor this to be more neat, create your own classes for this kind of thing. I'm still at the raw stage, and I think it's better to explain to you at a raw stage like this. I will try to post the source code for this on my website at iamdev.net. So if you want it, that is the most likely place to find it. You'll find plenty of other good things too. Okay, so we've gone through the status watcher. We're updating the status. We start the playback. And then, right, the next part of the puzzle is the playback fragment. Now in the fragment is where we access the buttons, right? So obviously when you press the button, something needs to happen. If you press play, it's going to say, is the recording setup finished? If it is, then it's going to toggle the playback because it knows it's already started. So it'll do pause, play, whatever, you know, whichever toggle you need. So in the view model, the toggle playback looks like that. So if it is playing, then pause the playback. If it's not playing, then resume the playback. Okay, simple enough. Fast forward image button. Well, that's just going to seek the media player forwards by 10 seconds. And likewise with rewind, minus 10 seconds. To seek the media player, we have this function that I created. And importantly, once we have the media player here, we create its current position, or we get its current position, and we add the offset that we passed in, so the plus or minus 10 seconds. And then we say, with that media player, I want you to go to the new position and go to the nearest key position that you can to the value I give you. So it won't be exactly minus 10 seconds. It'll be like minus 10 seconds and 50 milliseconds. But for this, it doesn't actually matter. Right, so that's how we seek using the buttons. Now, what things do you need to know here? This is the tricky bit, actually. For the Seekbar, what we need is an onSeekbar change listener interface, right? So I've created a private class in here, and this class implements this interface. The interface gives you on progress changed, on start tracking touch, on stop tracking touch. So on progress changed, I'm not doing anything. So actually I'm going to comment that out. On progress changed is called whenever the bar moves, regardless if it's human touch or it's just our UI updating process, okay? On start tracking touch is, as it implies, when I touch it, this will be fired. So in my case, when this is touched, I'm going to pause the player. And then on stop tracking touch, I am going to find out where the bar is and then apply that position to the media player so it goes to that position, right? So to do that, we get the Seekbar progress, which is actually passed in here. So we get the progress, and we say, take that progress and apply it to the media player, and then start the media player again. So this should really be toggle, but whatever. These are things I have to fix in the app. Now, how do we apply the Seekbar listener to the Seekbar? Well, first we create a Seekbar listener variable. So this is equivalent to this. And then this SBL, we're going to make it, where did I put it? Oh, do SBL, here it is. So in the on view created, we say playback Seekbar, set on Seekbar change listener, and we apply the SBL. And I still haven't told you where I've created it, have I? I know it's here. I've seen it. Am I going crazy? Let's copy, paste that. Ah, there it is. So on create view is called before on view created. So I set the SBL there, the Seekbar listener. So I create a new one, I pass it in the view model, which is perfectly safe to do. And then I apply the Seekbar to the current one that we have, the Seekbar listener, to the current Seekbar. Okay, so now we have a listener set up. So whenever I touch that Seekbar, this is going to get fired and do whatever is in those functions. So that's how we connect the two. Now the final pieces of the puzzle are in the playback fragment. So in the Seekbar, we have to set the max, right? The maximum value of the Seekbar is the media duration in milliseconds. The duration, the progress is the current position in milliseconds, right? So beginning of the track, end of the track. Is this the correct way around? I'm just trying to think which way of saying this. No, beginning of the track, end of the track, progress, right? So end of the track, media duration, progress, current position in milliseconds. And because these items are live data, that one and that one, if they change, then so does the user interface of the Seekbar. Obviously, the max isn't going to change, right? I just have that set because I might let the user edit the audio later. So the max will actually change. What you would be concerned about with a basic media player app is the progress side of things. View model, current position, milliseconds. So that is what allows this thing to move as we're playing the audio, right? Like that. So it's that connection. Then finally, let's just see what else you need to see here. Well, I've been through the image button part of it for pause and play. It's checking the is playing and doing IC Media Play or IC Media Pause. That's about it. Now, as I said at the start, this is a very quick overview. This isn't a here's the code, slow typing out. So obviously it was for you if you're a fairly advanced developer already and you're just looking for more of an architecture guide on how to do this correctly. Now, I've got a few bugs in this code, so it's not perfect by any means, but I will get you sort of 80% of the way there. I haven't finished it yet. It's worth pointing out that I am using my media player in the view model. So it's a bit ambiguous. I think actually the media player should be in its own separate class, and I might yet do that. But for this particular case, I don't really want to, because it's not that kind of app where it needs to play in the background or anything like that. The thing about having this in the view model is the view model persists longer than the fragment, right? So if I rotated the fragment, the music might go away because the fragment gets destroyed or might get destroyed and then redisplayed. So that's something to be aware of. If I had my media player stuck in the fragment, I might have issues. In the view model, it has a longer life. So it will be there as long as we're requesting this fragment. So that's why I have it in here. Now, the final thing is on cleared. You should know this already. You have to release the media player because it's consuming system resources that need to be cleared so we don't run away with the user's battery and things like that. Set the media player to null. I don't think that's really necessary, but can't hurt. Famous last words. And then this is the important line: handler remove callback status checker. So that status checker we created before, we have to remove the callback to it. Otherwise, it won't be removed from memory and we'll have a memory leak. Right, that's that. I hope it helped you. And if it did, please leave a like, a subscribe, and or a comment pointing out the bugs that I've missed, because that will shorten my day in the future. You made it to the end of this video, and that puts you in the top 10% of all my viewers. Dedication like that will get you very, very far in life. Reward yourself and me by clicking that subscribe button and the notification bell. Even better, you can watch all the previous series of Build It by going to imdev.net/build it. What's more, you can even download the source code from all these videos, access revenue reports, and get a free cheat sheet that shows you the entire creation process I use in order to make these applications. Get that right now by heading over to imdev.net/build it.